Welcome to the C-Suite Sales and Marketing Perspectives podcast. I'm Steve McDonald, your host. We've got a very dynamic duo on the podcast here today. We've got from Tricon Infotech, we've got the Chief Growth Officer, Seth Carpien, and I'm not going to get this right. It is so big and so important. VP of Change Management and Transformation, Misti Fragen. So there's a lot of head power in the room here today, and we're going to be talking about something that we don't talk about enough. I think every executive in the B2B industry would say, we all know we live and we operate in a relationship-based business. But then how do we transform that? How does that actually inform what we do internally? How does it inform our go-to-market strategy? And then with that relationships, how do relationships are based on trust? So we're going to talk about a trust-first advantage in modern B2B growth. And both you embody and live this. Seth, you've had an incredible career, which I read all about in your book, Mentors.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. There we go. Second book.
Here, which, by the way,
I love it. I love it. The first two books bought. I love it. Fantastic.
I get a lot of books sent my way, and I thoroughly enjoyed this book.
Thank you.
You wrote it from the perspective of just what it felt like going through it. I felt like I was there with you. So much to learn from that book. When you and I first got together and we talked about coming onto the podcast, we just had a mind meld. We could get hit over the head on trust and how important it is. And it can be one of those words that's like value, right? Like it just gets used so often that it just gets lost in the fray. And we all nod our heads and shake and go, yeah, trust is really important. And then we just go on with our day, right?
Yep.
Forrester this last year in their predictions said trust is the currency. That's what makes the difference between getting in the deal and closing the deal. That's how important it is. And they went so far as to say, look, we got brand building programs, we've got demand generation programs, we got change programs. We don't have trust programs.
Yeah.
And they called it the number one thing that we need to do. We're going to try to really unpack that here today. Misti, before I'm going to let both of you explain a little bit more about your background, but I don't know how you got to be change, transformation, and management VP from being the MBA publicist and handler, but you've got a real desire and just curiosity about how we tick as humans and human design and how they can bring that into the business world. I would love to just turn it over to you guys for just a couple of minutes and explain a little bit more about your background before we get started.
Awesome.
Great. Misti, why don't you go ahead first?
So honestly, you nailed it. Honestly, Steve, I really do have curiosity about me. And I honestly think that's why in my career, like now I have this very long title, which we're still curious about what that means on a day-to-day basis. But
we're looking to add more to it at some point.
Absolutely. It's alphabet soup at this point. In my background, though, I mean, I've sat in enterprise-wide organizations, but I've also been a small business owner. And so I've seen both sides of the coin. I also worked for NBA, NFL very early on in my career, but there's always been something distinctual about what I've done. It's never been something that's just run of the mill. And if anybody knows me, Seth, you can keep your mouth shut because I'm sure you'll say it, but there's nothing run of the mill about me also. So very early on in my career, as I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, Seth talks about this in his book about job versus career. I wanted to not do what everybody else did. And in the day, they called it internal communications as I was coming up through the ranks. But that engulfed everything. As I continued up through my career, I was very fortunate enough to have leaders that sat in product and technology and other areas of the organizations that saw something different where I could not only come in and I could write comms for leaders all day with my eyes closed, but one thing I could do is I could study the element of people and look at how do you build a culture within an organization that was part of the macro culture of an enterprise, but also the microculture of what those teams were doing. That would encompass everything from learning and development to change management, to communications, to onboarding, culture and engagement, all of that. I've really made the bulk of my career and studying that and bringing that also to other leaders and other organizations, not only internally with them, but also looking externally. If somebody's rolling something out, if there's a reorg, how can I go in and immerse myself in helping them do that and being a success with that? It's something I'm extremely passionate about. It's really nice because one thing I'm able to do working alongside Seth is to be able to bring that expertise, even in a business development kind of mindset, because it's still relationship building, it's still studying people. And so able to bring that element in.
I love that. I love it. Seth, your turn.
Wow, such a defined direction of career, what Misti has wanted to do. It really has been consistent. As long as I've known Misti, what she has been doing has been very consistent. On the other hand, you have me that looks like a mutt when it comes to my business career, my career. I have had a lot of jobs and I've had a lot of career paths that may have gotten a little bit altered throughout my entire business life. But I think the one thing that has been consistent for me throughout my path, having been in sales a majority in financial and technology, owned a restaurant at one point, went into product, running product for large organizations, is that I have always maintained a want and a need to grow and learn and understand the best ways to build relationships and networks. That has always been consistent throughout my career. And I've learned the wrong way several times. I've learned the right way. And what I've seen is that has blossomed into these business relationships that have become personal relationships, which has allowed for me to continue to grow. I really do find that it's also made me into the leader I am today, because not just from the book where I'm trying to impart what I've learned to many, many different people. I think as a leader, I am continuously trying to impart my learnings onto the team so that we can continue to help them learn and grow. I think that is one thing. While I may have one aspect of things and Misti may have another aspect of things, which is chapter 17 in the book, by the way,
The best chapter.
the best chapter, as she always says. That's the one piece that we both really rely on and believe in, is that we want to continuously learn and grow ourselves and make sure that the team that we work with is learning and growing as well. It's been a great path at this point.
It's been a path.
Now it's time for us to soak up on all of that wisdom. Seth, in our conversation we had before, you framed something so simply and so eloquently that I wanted to start the podcast out with it. And now you're probably thinking, what the heck was that? What you said is, Steve, it's more important for them to know what we do, for them to know us and trust us. And then once they know us and trust us, then it's important for them to know what we do. To the point, you told me a story, which I'd love to recount better than I would, but that you were in a prospect's offices and the gentleman looked at you and he goes, and what do you guys do? Right?
What do you do again? Right.
But you had built up so much trust. You were there. You had the meeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about this: know, trust, and then know what we do. Why in that order versus, because we flip it. We try to flip it all the time.
We do, and we do try to flip it. I think it's interesting that Forrester is now saying it's like, now we need to earn trust. And frankly, my entire career, because I started out in the financial services industry, and I learned very early on that in order to get someone to give you their money to invest, they had to trust you. So it was all about getting to know someone or a referral or whatever those things may be. Then they would give you the money. If they knew you or somebody knew you or whatever that path was, getting to that point, they had to trust you. So when I started doing what we do now, I was with another company years ago, which actually got acquired. It was very quickly within the first year, and I spent 8 years at that company. Within the first year, I realized, wow, I have nothing tangible that I am selling. I am selling my trust. I am basically saying, you need to believe me that my company is going to do what we deliver. It is a service. It is not a product. It hit me at that point. It hit me, and I thought, wow, I have to build that trust, earn that trust first. And then at that point, I can ask the questions, the difficult questions. I can get them to sit down with me and talk about their problems. But until then, it's transactional, it's commoditized. And that's not how you build a successful business, in my opinion. I have been selling trust for years. And I really hope that a lot of people who are listening to this podcast aren't relying on Forrester to tell them it's time to do that. I really hope that they've been doing it prior to that.
So Here's a question, Misty. I'd love to have you maybe take this one. Traditionally, we built trust by proving what we could do for you. We deliver, and then we package it into a case study. By the way, there was a great study that came out a couple of years ago that 74% of B2B buyers don't believe the customer evidence that we
Yeah.
present to them.
Yeah.
And in the most recent LinkedIn Edelman Trust Barometer, 68% of 32,000 respondents worldwide said that they think that we as business leaders are being intentionally misleading. Intentionally misleading.
Yeah.
No matter what our values, our morals, putting trust in relationships first, we're lumped into the B2B world.
Yeah.
Which is why B2B buyers are waiting longer and longer to want to even talk to us. How do we build trust in that environment?
I think to me, it's simple. The reason that is because people are too focused on the end result. They're focused on the dollar and the sale. They're not focused on the journey of how that gets there. If you actually start and you focus on the journey and the beginning, and you're not focused on what that dollar amount is at the end, because if that's all you're focused on, you're never looking at the actual person. You're never looking actually at the relationship, the company, the difference that you're going in there to make. If you're focused on that, that's when that trust every single time builds through more and more. We see this every day. That was a funny story that happened that somebody did look at us and was like, what do you guys even do? But we're sitting in their office. They're buying us, right? They're buying us. They're buying like, hey, Misty and Seth have been there for all these months or for the last year and a half, helping connect me to this, talking to me about this, providing this, just guidance on whatever. Hey, at the end of the day, if there is something, they were never focused on just getting a deal with me. In fact, they never even talked to me about what that was going to be. But you know what? When I said that my daughter was going to go to XYZ college, they said, oh, we have somebody who graduated from there. Let's connect the two of you. That's the stuff that matters. That's the journey. You can't be focused on the out at the very end. You just can't be, or you lose that translation of the trust.
Now, this is a really important question because we live in a world of short-termism. A lot of our clients are on the street. They have short-term rewards. Our sales departments are judged on short-term quotas. We never go into a board meeting ever and have a board member say, hey, Seth, hey, Misty, how's that trust building program going? Right? You know, I mean, come on, we all know it's really
But how
about
awesome would it be
Yeah.
if they did?
Right?
It would, right?
Yeah.
But
Yes.
that's not the world that we live in. How do we build trust, build these relationships in a world that isn't expecting us to do that, not rewarding us to do that? The entire system around us isn't against us on that, but it's not for us.
You're dead on. What I think is interesting, if you would go and talk to sales leaders, this is a guess, I have no study behind this, but I would wager 75% or more would say that their success comes from the relationships that they have built. But then they go and hire people. Now, and this may not be because of the sales leader. There's a lot of pressure from the board, the CEO, the CFO, whoever it may be. There's a lot of pressure to hit those numbers. But where does that get lost? That the people who have been successful, the leaders that have been around for a long time, especially in certain industries, they built their success on those relationships, on that trust that they have built over the years. Now, we talked about this as well. There are certain organizations that may have a little bit of a longer runway. They have been successful, they have been around, and that will enable them to build those relationships in order to get there. A lot of companies don't. A lot of companies don't have that. But here's what they try to hire for. They want to hire somebody who has been in that industry or knows people in that industry because they believe that they already have those relationships that exist. However, I've been in this space. I was at a company for 8 years. I'm now at a new company doing the same thing. They have to make sure that they trust me to back the new company that I am working with as well. A lot of factors that come into play here. Again, I don't know that there's the patience for it. Maybe with Forrester coming out with a report, the boards and the CEOs will now listen. But that's really a difficult thing for companies to understand. I think Misty and I are very lucky to have a CEO who gets that. He built this company. Tricon's been around for 27 years, and he built it organically based on relationships that he's had over the years. I think that's why because the culture exists, and that's the other side of it. If the culture doesn't exist, which Misti can talk to again all day about, but if the culture doesn't exist, then they're not going to buy into it. And they're still looking for that transactional
Yeah.
sale
Right.
that needs to happen. Misti, you see it all the time with
Yeah.
culture.
No, it is. That's it. That's really what it comes down to. You summed it up. If you're focused on the transaction, the trust goes out the window. You got to be focused on something different than that. Here's the thing, too. It feels like it takes forever. Seth and I talked about that. And we have, between the two of us, quite a bit over the last going on 2 years of this current role of, gosh, it just takes a long time. But in the end of the day, it's worth it. I'm going to say that in two parts. Number one, it can be worth it if eventually there is something that comes to you for a sale and you land that great thing. The other side that's worth it to you is the paying it forward, right? It may not happen with this person that you've put up a lot of investment into and the relationship you've built and the dynamics that you've built. But guess what? There's 2 to 3 more people they're telling about you two. And that's something that comes back there. It's always a win-win when you invest in someone else and you ask the questions and you're truly there for them, not for the transaction. That's what it's got to be about, though. And that's authenticity.
It's interesting because convincing our own companies, our own boards, our own leadership, our own counterparts that this is important. I think Bain and Google did a study, Sixth Sense did a study that said in our B2B world, day one, when the company decides they need to hire, they need to bring in a tech solution, they're officially in the buyer mode. Day one, they determine 4 out of the 5 they're going to look at. And then they pick over 90% of the time, they award the deal to one of those companies.
Right.
So to all of your point here, if you have not built the trust with that 95% of the market that isn't in the market to buy, when they decide to buy and they don't know you, they don't trust you, you're out.
Yeah.
You're not considered. And if you're
Yeah.
brought in just as a competitive pressure for the other guys. That's at the very early stages. You talked, Misti, about that you've got to be there for the whole journey.
Mhm.
How does trust impact not only the day one getting on the list, but how does it impact those early stages, mid stages, late stages? How does this trust equity that you built up that got you onto the list, how does it help closing that deal, which might take a year?
Again, I think it's the intentionality. People know if you're invested in them. Finally, something drops and they need something that you provide. As long as you've stayed the course, like I don't know that there's any relationship that Seth and I have currently built over the last almost 2 years that we are not constantly checking in on, not from a sales perspective, though, not from a transactional. Honestly, these are people we are building true relationships with of, oh my gosh, how's the new grandbaby? How's this? It is not in any way unauthentic. Like we truly are invested in what people are doing, how they're growing businesses. Oh, you just got a new role. Tell us more about it. Also, who can we make sure knows about that you're doing this? Because that's going to be a better connection. At the end of the day, we're building community. And if you continuously have your eye on building that community, that trust continues to grow and grow.
Yeah, and I will add to that, Misti is correct. We do have conversations with these people in our community, in our network, about how they're doing because we genuinely care and they know that. I will say, though, there are times when we do have to ask that question. Are there initiatives coming up that we can be involved in conversation about? But it makes it easier for us to ask those questions because they know who we are. And look, we were just on a call last week and it was like, okay, so things are moving within the company and they're moving at a certain pace. Do we set this call for 3 weeks or 4 weeks later? We can talk about kids and sports and whatever else it is, but in order to have a conversation about this particular thing, when do we want to have this? We build those relationships to be allowed to ask those questions.
That's so true. Seth will back this because this is probably the part, Steve, that I struggled with the most coming into this role. Because while I had done some development work back when I was younger in a very different capacity, this type of role was hard for me. While we were talking to people that I had built relationships with and brought into this role of talking to and telling about what I was doing, I remember the first time we were just inviting people to go to dinner. And I said to Seth, I'm like, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do this. Oh my gosh, they're going to think I'm selling to them. They're going to not want to talk to me anymore. I was so like, oh my gosh. And then all of a sudden, I like was getting responses back. Oh my gosh, I'd love to do this. It'd be great to catch up. And I'm calling him and I'm like, they responded to me. And I still to this day, Seth will be like,
Yeah.
send a quick follow-up. We haven't followed up with so-and-so. I'm like, hi, I hope you're well. Like I struggle, but he's
Yeah.
always right. It does truly come down. It's like we have permission to do that because people know that there is a trust layer there. But it has been the part that I've struggled the most with.
Here's the other side of the reality, or the other side of the coin, we'll say. There are still people that won't look at it that way. They will still think, because of our titles, that it's a sale, and they will back away. And that has happened. It has happened. That's fine. That's okay. It's going to happen. But we are confident that we have built such good relationships with other people that it's okay to lose a few. Maybe they don't want to be my friend anyway. I don't want to be their friend too.
So you guys you just slightly introduced something that you've majorly gone in on. And it's a trend that is starting, and I call it like reverse COVID, right? Where after COVID, like not meeting with people in person became the new thing. You mean I can just do this on a Zoom call or a Teams call? Like I don't have to travel all the time. Wow. But you've gone in deep on the dinner table strategy. And I'll leave it to whoever wants to introduce what this dinner table strategy is.
And here's why I'm gonna start, because when Misti starts talking, I don't know if I'll ever get the microphone back. So I'm going to introduce it, and then I'm going to let Misti take it from there. It was really interesting. And this actually goes back to the story that Misti just told about. We had just started at Tricon. I believe it was end of July, beginning of August. We had just started at Tricon. I had come from a product. I was leading product teams at a company. Misti was doing internal comms for the product and technology organization at a company. We had not been doing business development, sales of any kind I hadn't done it probably in about 4 or 5 years. And that had been my focus. And Misti just hadn't done it in a long time. We have networks. We have people that we knew, some people that we hadn't talked to in quite a few years. So we said, let's just have a dinner. Let's have a dinner and let's invite some people. What it is today and what it's grown to, that Misti's going to talk more about, was not originally where we intended to go. We just thought, let's invite some old friends together. We'll have some wine. We'll have some good food, and let's talk, and we'll tell people where we're from. I'm going to tell this, and Misti, we haven't talked about this in a while. I will never forget, there was at one point during the dinner, the very first dinner, one of our good friends who was in our network said, Seth, why don't you tell everybody what you do? And I'm sitting there at the table, and I wasn't expecting to do it at that point. And it was weird because I tell people what we do all the time. I felt extremely uncomfortable. Like I was sitting there, all of a sudden it became a sales thing. Everybody was talking and enjoying and just having a great time. And then it became a sale. And it just drained the room. You remember that?
Yeah. Oh, I do.
That, right?
Yeah. You were very uncomfortable.
Yeah. So it just became, it was the last time, and it's grown into what it is now. And Misti has been a huge driver of it.
So Misti, what is it? If you could tell us kind of
the elusive
it.
The elusive it. It's called The Table. It's very simple. It's not rocket science what we've done. It is a passion project for both of us. We're very proud of it, what it's become. But it did start off exactly what Seth just said, bringing some of our contacts together. It just so happened that a significant amount of our close network was in New York. And so we started with this simple dinner in New York at a little restaurant, getting people together. We had maybe 1 or 2 people that were new to both of us that had been connected to us from our network. By the end of that dinner, I think at that one, there were 6 other people other than us. At the end of that dinner, I would say 5 of those 6 looked at us and said, when are we doing this again? This was amazing.
Wow.
There's no secret sauce. It's literally putting people together around a table who just talk and get to know each other, and we laugh and organic conversations happen. From there, it was like, hey, we may be on to something. Let's definitely schedule another New York quarterly. Why don't we look at a few other cities? Philly, Boston, Chicago. We have network there. That was a year and a half ago. We just celebrated September of 2025. We celebrated our year anniversary in New York. And that table, now that we've named it The Table, that table has now grown to where we have to do 2 dinners every time we're in New York. It's gotten so large. We do keep it not too big. We want people to still be intimate and have conversations and it be intentional. There's no assigned seating. Some people get there 15 minutes early for a cocktail. Some people show up 30 minutes late. Those of them
And
know
they
who
don't
they
get to eat
are.
though. They don't get to eat.
We're not seating charts. Like, we just don't do that. The feedback we've gotten around why it works is because not only is there no sales at all, we won't even let people who would even potentially talk about selling. But the reason I think it works is people say there's just no pressure. These are
Yeah.
CIOs and CTOs and like coming around the table going, there's no pressure of nobody's talking up there about now we're going to talk about what it means to be a great leader. Like, we don't do that. We're
Right.
just
No, we
having
ask
a lot of
questions. We ask
we ask
silly
these
questions.
silly questions, not like, so tell me about your best time as when the best time you led somebody and you have great memories of it. No,
It's
it's
what's your serial killer trait,
what's your
Steve?
serial killer trait,
What's your
right? Like,
serial killer trait?
we have the best times. And from that, we have seen these communities come up from that. The table is aptly named now The Table. Everybody has a seat. At the end of last year in New York, we've now done some partnership work with a group called Build On. We worked at a soup kitchen. Our table attendees came, they gave up an entire day to do service in the Bronx, which was just incredible. Ended it with a dinner. Like, we're just seeing these amazing, like I said, little communities pop up and people just being so excited about passing things forwards and being a part of each other's lives, helping out, continuing to move
Yeah.
things forward of what we've built.
And what's even more interesting about this, Steve, so we're doing a table in New York, Philadelphia, Chicago. We both live in North Carolina, and we are actually doing one in near the area that I live, and we're trying to grow one a little bit further east. But we have some people that are coming to that this will be the second conference coming up. We did a conference last August. We had a few people who were there from different tables come together at a table at the conference. So they met new people there. We have another one coming up in March where we already have the same thing happening the night before the conference kicks off the next day. We're having a table. It's some people who have been there before and some new people. And now it's taking on a life of its own.
Well, so here's what I want to do. I want to take a step back and I want to
Sure.
ask you the serial killer question. No.
Oh, no.
I know Misti's, Steve. We need to hear yours. We'll get you back on that one.
Here's the most important question, okay? Because we've covered a lot of territory here. If there was one thing that you wanted to leave the audience with today, other B2B C-suite executives that are looking to plot their own course, their own go-to-market strategy for success, what is the lesson learned that you want them to take away?
Wow. So I'll say this. The first, which is just the most obvious one, be okay with building relationships first and building that trust first. Be okay with that. However, here's the other side of that. I don't care. You could spend all day whiteboarding a framework, a strategy around building trust. But in the end, you have to go and do it. You have to get your hands dirty and you have to be willing to work on it. We have built some great relationships. We work very hard at this, Steve. Misti and I, we travel. We spend a lot of time building up these relationships. Regardless of what strategy or framework you put together, you just have to understand that it is work and you're going to have to get your hands dirty and go after it regardless.
Yeah. I love it. Misti?
I would say for me, I think sometimes people forget that we're just human. I think we go into rooms with other people and look at titles and we forget that we all just woke up and made coffee that morning. We all just woke up and threw a collared shirt on to hop on a Zoom, and that we are all still dealing with things. And it's easy to go in and not be authentic and not be intentional about what we're doing. And if we go into that with the mindset of being authentic and being intentional, no matter what titles are, and I think going back to the table, I do think that's one reason it works, is that there is no errors. There's nothing. It is just people sitting around enjoying a meal and a drink and laughing. If we could do that more and more rooms that we go into and remembering that through our career, I think there would be a lot more trust and a lot stronger bonds and relationships out there and a lot less bridges that have been burned.
I feel like we need an entire podcast series on this because I want to go on for another couple hours.
I don't know what you're going to get with
We
Seth
could talk.
Carpien, I'll tell you.
Yeah. We could talk.
The mission of this podcast is that we get to listen into our peers. We get to listen into what they're doing, how they're rethinking, how they're innovating, what they've tried, what worked, what didn't. I just talked to literally a chief growth officer that said, what I'm doing now, I wasn't doing 3 months ago, a lot of it. That's the one thing we all know. The rules are just completely changing on us all the time. But one of my big takeaways from this is the relationship and trust has never changed.
Yeah.
We are all, to your point, we are all people and we trust others, right? And so that's a huge takeaway from me, that no matter how AI is impacting what we're doing, no matter what kind of digital change transformation management program we've got going on, no matter what pressure there is to close a year out, trust is a constant foundation to all of that. And so I just wanted to say thank you for shining a huge spotlight on that today.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for letting us have the opportunity, Steve, to talk
Yeah.
about it. It's great.
Thank
We
you.
love
We
it.
loved it.